Picture a village in the mountains of Sardinia, Italy. It is 1971. A woman named Maria is 94 years old. She tends her garden every morning before sunrise, eats the same simple meal she has eaten for 7 decades, and has never not once struggled with her weight. She is not on medication. She has never heard of a calorie counting app, and she has never, in her entire life, felt the kind of uncontrollable hunger that is driving millions of people in the modern world straight to their doctors' office begging for a weekly injection that costs over $1,000 a month. Here is what nobody is telling you. The mechanism that Ozempic artificially triggers inside your body: the suppression of appetite, the slowing of digestion, the regulation of blood sugar, was already solved by nature, thousands of years ago, in plants and foods that your great-grandparents knew by name. The ancient Greeks used one of these foods to control hunger during long sea voyages. Egyptian physicians prescribed another to dissolve what they called the heaviness of the belly. And a root used in traditional Chinese medicine for over 2,000 years has now been validated in clinical trials to reduce appetite hormones by up to 40%. Today we are covering 7 ancient foods that act as nature's Ozempic, and number 5 is a common backyard weed that has been suppressing appetite since the time of the Roman Empire. Number 8. Wait, we only have 7 today, but stay with us because number 5 will genuinely shock you. Before we go any further, if you want to stop relying on the pharmaceutical industry and take back control of your own body, subscribe to The Hidden Herbalist right now. Let's begin. Number 1. Fenugreek. Walk into any ancient Egyptian marketplace, and you would have found fenugreek seeds sold alongside gold and spices. This was not a coincidence. Egyptian physicians documented its use on papyrus scrolls dating back to 1500 BC, prescribing it specifically for reducing hunger and managing what we now call metabolic dysfunction. The science behind why fenugreek works as a natural appetite suppressant is now extraordinarily well understood. Fenugreek seeds contain a soluble fiber called galactomannan, which forms a thick, viscous gel in your stomach when it contacts water. This gel physically slows gastric emptying, meaning food stays in your stomach longer. Your blood sugar rises gradually rather than spiking, and your brain receives the satiety signal far earlier than it normally would. A 2015 study published in the Journal of Diabetes and Metabolic Disorders found that participants who consumed fenugreek fiber supplement before meals reported significantly reduced hunger, lower caloric intake, and improved insulin sensitivity compared to the control group. Another randomized controlled trial out of the University of Minnesota found that 8 grams of fenugreek fiber daily reduced appetite scores by 23% over a 12-week period. In traditional Ayurvedic medicine, fenugreek was soaked overnight and consumed on an empty stomach every morning, a practice still used today in rural India and Pakistan. The seeds were not considered a spice. They were considered medicine. You can add 1 teaspoon of ground fenugreek to warm water, tea, or a morning smoothie. The effect on your hunger hormones begins within 45 minutes. Ancient medicine already knew what clinical trials are only now confirming. Number 2. Gymnema sylvestre. There is a plant growing in the tropical forests of southern India that has a power so unusual, so difficult to believe until you experience it yourself, that its name in Hindi literally translates to sugar destroyer. That plant is Gymnema sylvestre, and it has been used in Ayurvedic medicine for over 2,000 years, not just to suppress appetite, but to fundamentally alter your relationship with sugar. Here is what makes Gymnema unlike anything in the pharmaceutical world: the active compounds in Gymnema leaves, called gymnemic acids, have a molecular structure almost identical to glucose. When you consume Gymnema before a meal or before eating something sweet, those gymnemic acids bind to the sugar receptor sites on your taste buds, physically blocking glucose molecules from triggering your sweet taste response. Sweet foods lose their appeal almost immediately. The craving mechanism is interrupted at its source. But the effect does not stop in your mouth. Gymnemic acids also bind to sugar absorption sites in the intestinal lining, reducing how much glucose actually enters your bloodstream after a meal. A landmark study published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology found that Gymnema extract significantly reduced blood sugar levels after meals in type 2 diabetic patients. A separate study at the Mysore Medical College demonstrated meaningful reductions in HbA1c over a 22-month period in patients using Gymnema supplementation alongside dietary changes. Traditional Ayurvedic practitioners brewed the dried leaves into a bitter tea, and instructed patients to consume it 20 minutes before meals. The result was dramatically reduced desire for sweet foods and smaller portion consumption across the board. When you destroy the craving, you destroy the overeating. Number 3, apple cider vinegar. This one has been living in your kitchen cabinet, possibly for years, and you may have had no idea it was one of the oldest appetite-suppressing tonics ever recorded in human history. Apple cider vinegar in its raw, unfiltered form containing what is known as the mother was used by Hippocrates himself, the father of modern medicine, as a tonic for weight management and digestive regulation as far back as 400 BC. It was prescribed to soldiers, athletes, and anyone who needed to maintain their weight through periods of physical hardship. The primary active compound is acetic acid. When consumed before a meal, acetic acid slows the rate at which your stomach empties, increases the feeling of fullness, and directly influences the production of insulin. A 2009 study published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that vinegar consumption with a starchy meal reduced the glycemic index of that meal by up to 36%. A Japanese clinical trial involving obese participants who consumed 15 to 30 milliliters of apple cider vinegar daily for 12 weeks resulted in statistically significant reductions in body weight, BMI, visceral fat, and waist circumference compared to the placebo group. The key distinction is the unfiltered raw form. Pasteurized apple cider vinegar has had the beneficial bacteria and enzymes removed. You want the cloudy bottle. You want the strands of culture floating inside it. That is where the medicine lives. 1 tablespoon diluted in a glass of water, consumed 15 minutes before your largest meal. Simple, free, ancient, and backed by peer-reviewed science. Hippocrates had no pharmaceutical lobby. He only had results. Number 4, saffron. This is the most expensive spice on earth by weight, and it has been for nearly 4,000 years. But the Persian and Egyptian civilizations that cultivated saffron were not paying its extraordinary price merely for flavor. Ancient Persian medical texts describe saffron as a remedy for the sadness that causes overeating, a description so precise it reads like a modern definition of emotional eating and stress-induced appetite. Dysregulation. The mechanism by which saffron suppresses appetite is uniquely neurological. The active compounds in saffron, crostin, and saffronol directly influence serotonin activity in the brain. Low serotonin is one of the primary biological drivers of compulsive snacking, carbohydrate cravings, and emotional eating. By naturally elevating serotonin signaling, saffron addresses appetite at its neurochemical root, not in the stomach, but in the brain. A double-blind, placebo-controlled study conducted at the University of Tehran and published in Nutrition Research found that women who took saffron extract daily for 8 weeks experienced a 34% reduction in snacking frequency compared to the placebo group. A second clinical study published in the same journal found significant reductions in appetite, BMI, and waist circumference in the saffron group over the same period. In traditional Persian medicine, a small pinch of saffron was steeped in warm water or warm milk and consumed in the late afternoon, precisely the time when cravings and emotional eating are at their peak. This was not ritual. This was targeted pharmacology using what the earth provided. You do not need much. 0.5 gram per day steeped in warm water is sufficient to begin influencing the serotonin-appetite connection. The ancients called it red gold. Science is finally proving why. Number 5, dandelion. Here it is. The one that is almost certainly growing right now in your backyard, along your driveway, pushing through the cracks in your sidewalk, and that most people spray with herbicide without a second thought. The dandelion. And before you dismiss it, understand this. Roman physicians cataloged dandelion as a metabolic medicine in the 1st century AD. Medieval European healers called it the liver herb because they observed correctly that it directly influenced fat metabolism through hepatic function. Here is the physiology. Dandelion root and leaf contain bitter compounds called taraxacin and taraxacerin, which stimulate bile production in the liver and gallbladder. Bile is the primary agent your body uses to emulsify and break down dietary fat. More bile means more efficient fat digestion, and critically, it also means faster satiation signaling. Because fat broken down efficiently triggers cholecystokinin release, one of your body's most powerful natural hunger suppression hormones. A study published in Molecules Journal examined the diuretic and metabolic effects of dandelion leaf extract and confirmed significant increases in urinary output and meaningful influences on lipid metabolism. Animal studies have shown dandelion root extract reducing fat accumulation in liver cells by reducing fat accumulation in liver cells by inhibiting lipogenesis, the process by which your body converts excess calories into stored fat. The entire plant is usable. Young dandelion leaves in a salad, dandelion root roasted and brewed as a coffee substitute, or dandelion leaf tea. Consumed before meals. During the Second World War, European families who had no access to coffee used roasted dandelion root daily, and researchers later noted lower obesity rates in those rural populations during that period. The most powerful pharmacy you have is growing outside your door right now. All right, pause for just a moment. You have already discovered 5 ancient foods that are doing something pharmaceutical companies are charging people over $1,000 a month for. You know about Fenugreek gymnema, apple cider vinegar, saffron, and the dandelion growing in your yard right now. But we are not done. Number 6 is a seed used by Viking warriors to suppress hunger during ocean crossings. And number 7, the final one, is a root that indigenous healers in South Africa have been using to eliminate hunger entirely for over 1,000 years. If you have not subscribed yet, do it right now. The second half of this list is where it gets extraordinary. Number 6. Flaxseed. Long before flaxseed appeared in health food stores in plastic packaging, it was a survival food. Norse and Viking seafarers carried it on ocean voyages precisely because a small amount pressed into flatbread or consumed whole with water created a prolonged sensation of fullness that could last through half a day of brutal physical labor. The ancient Egyptians cultivated flax along the Nile. Charlemagne, king of the Franks in the 8th century, considered flaxseed so essential to public health that he passed laws requiring his subjects to consume it regularly. The appetite-suppressing mechanism in flaxseed is twofold. First, flax seeds are extraordinarily rich in soluble fiber, specifically a mucilaginous fiber that, like Fenugreek's galactomannan, swells dramatically when it contacts water in your stomach. This physical expansion triggers stretch receptors in the stomach wall, sending satiety signals to the hypothalamus long before you would normally feel full. Second, flax seeds contain lignans, phytoestrogen compounds that research has shown to directly influence adiponectin levels, a hormone that regulates fat burning and insulin sensitivity. A study published in Appetite Journal found that participants who added ground flaxseed to their morning meal consumed significantly fewer calories throughout the rest of the day compared to those who did not. A meta-analysis in obesity reviews confirmed that flaxseed supplementation led to meaningful reductions in body weight and waist circumference across multiple trials. Ground flaxseed is the key. Whole seeds pass through your digestive system largely intact. Grind 1 tablespoon fresh each morning and add it to water, yogurt, or oatmeal. What kept Viking warriors at sea without hunger will keep your appetite controlled throughout your day. Number 7, Hoodia Gordonii. For over 1,000 years, the San Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert in southern Africa carried a specific cactus-like succulent plant with them on extended hunting expeditions. When the hunt stretched for days across waterless desert terrain, they would cut off a piece of this plant, chew it, and their hunger would disappear entirely, sometimes for the remainder of the day. That plant is Hoodia Gordonii, and it remained a secret known only to indigenous desert peoples until researchers from the South African Council for Scientific and Industrial Research began studying it in 1996. What they discovered fundamentally altered our understanding of appetite signaling. Hoodia contains a steroidal glycoside compound designated P57. This molecule mimics the effect of glucose in the hypothalamus, specifically in the area of the brain responsible for generating hunger signals. It essentially tells your brain that you are fed, that your blood glucose is adequate, and that the hunger signal should be switched off, not suppressed, switched off entirely. The signal never fires. In a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled clinical trial conducted by Unilever Research and later published in scientific literature, subjects who received the active Hoodia compound consumed on average 900 fewer calories per day compared to the placebo group, with no reported side effects and no changes in heart rate, blood pressure, or liver enzymes. The San people who used this plant for 1,000 years showed none of the wasting effects you see with pharmaceutical appetite suppressants. They remained strong, lean, and functional on long hunts. The desert already had the answer. The pharmaceutical industry simply repackaged it and charged you accordingly. Nature's intelligence does not come with a side effect label. You now know the 7 ancient foods that have been suppressing appetite and melting fat since long before the first pharmaceutical patent was ever filed. Fenugreek, Gymnema sylvester, raw apple cider vinegar, saffron, dandelion, flaxseed, and Hoodia Gordonii. Every single one of these has been used by ancient civilizations who were leaner, more metabolically healthy, and longer lived than we are today, and every single one has now been validated by peer-reviewed science. If this video opened your eyes to something the medical system was never going to tell you, hit that like button right now. It helps us reach the people who need this most, and I want to know where you stand. Drop a comment below. Are you going to try one of these natural alternatives, or do you still trust the pharmaceutical approach? Tell me below. Subscribe and hit the bell. The Hidden Herbalist posts every week. What we find next might change everything.